Hello everyone, welcome to the garden. So it's time to talk Scheffleras again. So I'm going to do a bit of an update on some of the plants I've bought this year and also look at a few things to consider, because if someone's going to buy a Schefflera, more than likely they're going to buy a micro-propagated Taiwaniana, Schefflera Taiwaniana. And I think you need to consider a few things, especially if you're planting it as like a single specimen plant. I like to plant them in groups of 3 because they're cheap as chips and they look really good. But if you're looking for a really kind of prized specimen plant, I think there's a few things you need to consider. But first of all, I paid £12.50 for 2 plants from B&M Bargains. Earlier on in the year, I saw a plant somebody had bought and it was tiny. And at the time, I remember, they're in 2-litre pots. I remember thinking, these are that price because I haven't got any trade labels, but the Jungle Garden trade label, they're clearly releasing them out into retail, if you like, as much smaller plants. Now, to my surprise, it was quite well rooted as well, so that was a good thing. The problem is with buying these small plants at £12.50 is you need to consider when you can plant them out. Now, this will vary depending on where you are in the country and also in your garden as well, because I planted plants that I'm going to contradict what I'm about to say, because I planted quite a small plant around the back here somewhere. It's done perfectly fine. But generally, and I see this all over the Facebook groups and stuff like that, rule of thumb is 15 to 18 inches of woody stem. And I think that is a really good guideline for most people. I guess if you're in southwest and all these places where it's a lot milder and good drainage as well, that does help definitely with these plants. So 15 to 18 inches. Now, it may seem obvious, but I can get a 15 to 18 inch woody stem plant in a 2-litre pot. So, and I think what a lot of people forget to mention is you need to get them in a bigger pot as well. I like 7.5-litre pots. I think is a good size for that kind of size plant. I know, like I say, I know it seems dead obvious, but everyone says the 15 to 18 inch thing, but doesn't mention like potting up as well to get that nice big chunky root. So this is the plant, one of the 2 plants I bought from B&M, and you know, it's not got that woody stem forming yet. £12.50. It's growing well. I can see, I'll go through what it's growing in a minute. I can see signs of roots at the bottom. I'm not going to pot it on this year again. But what you need to consider is this. £12.50 from B&M for these small plants, or £25 earlier on in the year would have bought me a plant that size or even bigger from a nursery. Yeah? And what I'm saying is, for me, you're better off buying the bigger plant from the nursery and growing it on, and you've probably got a good chance of planting it out next year. This is now probably a little bit smaller than, still a little bit smaller than some of the plants I saw earlier on in the year for 20 quid, 25 quid. I actually saw some even bigger ones that nursery had potted on. So you could pay 30 quid, you could pay 40 quid for something quite substantial, which in itself is a good buy. And for me, you know, B&M aren't losing out if you don't buy their little £12.50 plants. They make tons of money off coffee, toothpaste and salad cream. Your local nursery, on the other hand, you know, buying from them keeps them going, and that's dead important. I think you need to consider that, because you can buy so much from B&M, but for the special plants, the really special things that set your garden alight, if you like, and really add a lot of interest, you ain't going to get that from B&M. That's where your specialist nurseries come in, and they're still here about and closing. So for me, buy the bigger plant from your local nursery. So a bit of a rant there as well, I guess, but I think it is a fair point. You pay your price, you know, whatever you pay, because you've got to overwinter this as well. I'd rather, you know, maybe for 2 winters before it's able to be planted out. You might as well buy the bigger plant and just overwinter it for 1 year. You know, you've got less chance of losing it then. So that is my little update on my B&M Schefflera Taiwaniana. Second point is, do you buy a micro-propagated plant or do you buy a seed-grown plant, which are quite difficult to find? They're not that difficult to find. If you put a bit of effort in, you'll find them. So there's a few issues, I think, with the micro propagated one. And that it's like this one here. This has got multiple growing points, free on this one. And generally, a seed-grown Taiwaniana looks a bit like that. I haven't, and this one's actually putting some fresh leaves out at the bottom, but I've generally not seen many multi-stemmed seed grown. They probably exist, but pretty much all the micro-propagated plants are multi-stemmed, and from what I am led to believe is it's something that's used, some kind of growth stimulant or whatever that's used in the micro-propagating process that causes that to happen. Blah, blah, blah. Right, problem with it is, a couple of things I've noticed, and I can demonstrate this in the garden, and we will do shortly, because I need to shut up, is that certain growing points randomly just stop. And I've actually had it happen with the main growing point, and it resulted in really lopsided and scruffy looking plants. So you do need to consider that. I found that you get a lot more yellowing of the leaves compared to a seed-grown plant, and I can demonstrate that in the garden as well with one of the biggest seed-grown plant, which does feature a lot on this channel because it is a rather tremendous plant. And just the growth rate is far superior on a seed-grown plant. So, right, 2 seed-grown plants here. There you go, 30 quid. They're still in 2 litre pots. I meant to pot them up a few weeks ago. When I got them in August, they weren't quite ready, but kind of got sidetracked. So I am going to pot them up into 5 litres, and these will go in the greenhouse over winter. 30 quid from Pan Global Plants. When I bought them, I said, I paid for them, and then I went, too cheap these, Nick. But I'll make sure I paid for them first. And he said, I watched the video and I saw you talking about the micro-propagated ones, and I went, you know, worlds apart. Just another thing as well, my opinions on the micro-propagated plants are formed through currently growing 18 of them in the garden. So, yeah. They need potting up. And then there's another one here. There's another 2 plants here. Now, these are 3-year-old plants. When I got these were tiny little seedlings. A guy called Rich, who lives in Leeds, gave me quite a few seedlings, and they have done really well. And I'm sure some people watching this video will know who I'm talking about. He's got a knack with Schefflera seeds. So these are really nice plants. That's in a 7.5 litre pot now, and I can see signs of the roots at the bottom. This is another one. Yeah, that's another one off him. That's in a 5 litre pot. That kind of slowed down a bit this year, but it's starting to sort of catch up again. What I'm planting them in, what I'm growing them in, because I hear a lot of people say peat-free composts are crap for growing Scheffleras in. Not far from the truth, actually. But what I have found, because you think these are woodland plants, so, you know, if you think about the floor of the woodland area or forest that they're growing in, there's going to be lots of bark and all kinds of stuff composting down. And so I thought I'd try, it's bloody heavy, composted fine bark from clover. That's quite heavy, that. And it's really heavy. I'm probably on about 3/4, when I do a potting mix, 3/4 of that stuff and then some clover regular peat compost. And that is what that's growing in, and that growth rate on that has been absolutely phenomenal this year. One other point before we go and look at some plants. Schefflera alpina micro-propagated. Now, I have seen some of these with 2 stems and 3 stems, but they don't tend to look kind of scruffy like the Taiwanianas. And I've also seen seed-grown plants. I've got a 3-stemmed and a 2-stemmed seed-grown plant as well. But for the most part, when I've seen them, and I've been to nurseries where there's been 30 or 40 plants, they're single-stemmed, and they're the same growers, the Jungle Garden. They come from the same range. So why these aren't multi-stemmed and the Taiwaniana are, I don't know. I know me and Shane Bilson went to a place, Woodend, Warrington, Widnes, that way, and he probably had 20 plants, and there was one double-stemmed one. which Shane swiftly swiped and paid for. So I've planted a couple of them this year as well. Right, I feel like I've been talking for ages. So a couple of points there, isn't there, to consider. Where do you buy your micro-propagated Schefflera Taiwaniana from? Do you buy a tiny plant from B&M for 12.5 quid, probably wait a couple of years to plant it out, or do you jump in for another 8 quid, maybe another 12 quid, and buy a plant that's significantly bigger from your local nursery, who you need to support because, you know, it's hard times sometimes. You know, like I said, I've heard about them closing, not regular, but you hear about it happening. And they're the places where you're going to get the special stuff from. Seed grown versus micro-propagated, my opinion, seed-grown plant do look better and they are worth hunting out, and you will find them. You might have to be a little bit patient. Pan Global plants are where these come from. I have bought them from Desert to Jungle in the past. Creek Farms, worth a try. Just keep your, you know, just shop around. You'll find them. And then what else? No, that's it. Let's go and look at some plants. So I had a seed-grown plant in a pot for quite a while. And I've planted it, move back a little bit, I've planted it just near seating area at the side of the house. I got this one from Desert to Jungle. Been in a pot a while and it needed to escape. I did test it in a little bit more sun than where I'd normally plant one of these, and that was the result. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. Sort of trying to walk backwards here without falling into anything. I think where it is, it'll make like a really nice focal, well, not focal point, but it just, I think it'll just look really cool right next to where we sit. So that is a seed grown plant, like I say, from Desert to Jungle. Now you may hear a bit of shouting in the background because I think they're filming something in one of the houses at the back. Yeah, so this is a micro-propagated plant. It is looking really nice now, but this one, I did lose the main growing. Someone's been nibbling on it as well. I have lost the main growing point on that, but it seems to have come on really well, as has this one here. So there is 3 of them in this bed. They're all doing quite well. Look at that Rodgersia now, massive leaves, but it's getting to the end of the year, well, end of the summer. So yeah, they're all looking okay. They do once they fill out and get to a certain size. Now I did mention I planted quite a small plant just to fill a bit of a gap here. It's done all right actually. It's quite sheltered here as well. So the biggest of the micro-propagated plants, you can see the top of it up there. It is over 2 meters tall now, and there's 3 of them in here. See if I can, you can see the leaves on it, the foliage. It does look really good. What I'm waiting to see though is what it looks like when a lot of this stuff around it dies back for winter. There's Schefflera alpina there as well. Let's have a look in there. Oops. You can't really see much at the moment. But if I swing round, there's another micro-propagated plant. Now, I planted a trio of Scheffleras here, and one of them was seed grown. And if I move back, there's the seed grown plant. So if I move back, you can see the difference between the two. And the really old leaves on the seed-grown plant still retain the greenness. I have pulled a lot of them off these plants, but I do see a lot of that yellowing of leaves on these. They certainly don't hang on as long as the seed-grown plant. So these were planted together because I planted a trio and I keep losing the one at the back. So I put another one, there is one in there somewhere. And they were both about the same size, and yeah, that's probably got 1 meter on that plant. Yeah, you can see a lot of the yellowing of leaves on this one now. In here, somewhere, there is. Yeah. There is a plant which kind of looks okay if you look at the top of it, but if you look down at the bottom, and it may be because of the growing conditions, I don't know, but you can see where the smaller growing points have just give up. And just about make one out there. And I thought at first it was summer, it was just down to winter, but no, I've seen it in the summer as well. Maybe the root can't support all the multiple growing points, I don't know. But I definitely see more of that with these plants. But they're great plants, and you know, don't dismiss the micro-propagated plants, but if you're after something really special, in my opinion, it is worth waiting until you find a nice seed-grown plant, because the end result makes it just so much more worthwhile, in my opinion. Right, that's it for now. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Cheerio.